I was in the middle of a crucial presentation when my phone buzzed. Glancing down, I saw her name. Amanda. The message hit me like a sledgehammer. I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you. 3 years together. My apartment, my credit cards, my unwavering support, through her career struggles, all dismissed in one cold text. I stared at those words, my hands trembling slightly, as I typed just 2 words in response. As you wish. In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. She had forgotten one crucial detail. It was my money funding her glamorous lifestyle. Before I tell you what happened when her lawyer called me in a panic, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever had to stand up for yourself after being betrayed. I met Amanda at a charity fundraiser for children with cancer 2 years ago. I remember being struck by her confidence as she moved through the crowd, effortlessly networking with everyone. Her dark hair cascaded down her back, and her smile lit up the room. I was there representing my software development company, which had just landed a major contract with a healthcare provider. My career had been on an upward trajectory since graduating from Stanford, with my computer science degree 6 years earlier. When Amanda approached me that evening, I was immediately drawn to her enthusiasm. She introduced herself as an aspiring fashion designer, showing me sketches on her phone of innovative designs that genuinely impressed me. Her passion was palpable, and I found myself captivated by her ambition and creative vision. We exchanged numbers, and by the end of that week, we had our first date at an intimate Italian restaurant downtown. Those early days were magical. We connected on multiple levels, discussing everything from business strategies to childhood memories. Amanda had grown up in a small town in Oregon before moving to the city to pursue her dreams. I admired her courage and determination to make it in the competitive fashion industry. After several months of dating, our relationship deepened. We spent nearly every weekend together exploring hidden hiking trails, trying new restaurants, or simply relaxing at my apartment watching obscure documentaries that we both loved. Amanda was unlike anyone I had dated before, with a uniquely artistic perspective on life that complemented my more analytical approach. 8 months into our relationship, Amanda mentioned that her roommate was moving out and her rent would double. Without hesitation, I suggested she move in with me. My 3-bedroom apartment had more than enough space, and the idea of waking up next to her every morning felt right. She accepted enthusiastically, and within 2 weeks, her colorful possessions brightened every corner of what had previously been my somewhat sterile living space. What impressed me most during those early days was her independence. Despite her financial challenges, Amanda refused financial help initially. She worked part-time as a barista while developing her fashion portfolio, often staying up late sketching new designs. I respected her work ethic and determination to make it on her own merits. Little did I know how drastically things would change. About 6 months after Amanda moved in, I noticed subtle shifts in our relationship. Her design career wasn't progressing as quickly as she had hoped. Several boutiques had expressed interest in her work, but ultimately passed. Each rejection seemed to chip away at her confidence, and I watched as her previously boundless enthusiasm began to wane. Wanting to support her dreams, I suggested she cut back on barista hours to focus more on her designs. I assured her that my income was sufficient to cover our living expenses. Initially reluctant, she eventually agreed, expressing heartfelt gratitude and promising to repay me once she got her big break. I truly believed in her talent and wanted to give her the opportunity to succeed. As weeks passed, Amanda began asking for small amounts of money for supplies and materials. These requests seemed reasonable, so I added her as an authorized user on my credit card for convenience. I still remember her face lighting up when I handed her the sleek black card with her name embossed on it. I told her to use it for anything she needed for her business and our household. Gradually, her purchases expanded beyond fabric and thread. First came designer clothes that she insisted were necessary for networking in the fashion industry. Then, expensive dinners with potential contacts. Soon, she was getting regular treatments at high-end spas and salons, explaining that maintaining a certain image was crucial for her brand. My income could comfortably handle these expenses, so I rarely questioned them. However, I did notice other concerning changes. Amanda started receiving calls that she would take in another room. If I asked who called her, answers became increasingly vague. Late nights out for networking became more frequent, yet she shared fewer details about these events or the contacts she was supposedly making. My longtime friend Jackson expressed concern during one of our monthly poker games. "Your girl seems to be enjoying the lifestyle you provide a bit too much," he said cautiously. "Have you seen her social media lately?" I brushed off his comment defending Amanda and explaining the importance of image in her industry. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to his words and the worried look in his eyes. Despite these changes, I remained supportive. I believed that relationships required sacrifice and patience during difficult times. Amanda had been there for me during stressful project deadlines, bringing me coffee late at night and massaging my tense shoulders. I told myself that her current behavior was temporary, just a phase until her career took off. I had no idea how wrong I was. The first truly troubling incident occurred about a year into our living together. While doing laundry, I found a receipt in Amanda's jacket pocket for an expensive men's cologne. My birthday had passed months ago, and Christmas was still far off. When I casually mentioned the receipt, Amanda became uncharacteristically defensive. "It's for my brother," she snapped, then quickly softened her tone. "His birthday is coming up, and I wanted to surprise him." I nodded, but something felt off. In all our time together, she had rarely mentioned her brother, and I could not recall her ever buying him gifts before. That night, I noticed Amanda password protecting her phone. When I asked why, she laughed lightly and said, "My designs are getting more valuable. I need to protect my intellectual property." The explanation seemed reasonable on the surface, but a knot formed in my stomach nonetheless. Our physical intimacy had been declining steadily for months. What had once been a passionate connection several times a week had dwindled to brief, almost obligatory encounters once every few weeks. Whenever I tried to initiate, Amanda claimed exhaustion or stress. I respected her boundaries, but couldn't help feeling increasingly disconnected. Determined to rekindle our relationship, I planned a surprise weekend getaway to Napa Valley. I booked a luxury suite at an exclusive vineyard resort and arranged for private wine tastings. When I revealed the surprise, Amanda seemed momentarily excited but then frowned, checking her calendar. "That weekend doesn't work for me," she said. "I have an important meeting with a potential investor." Her response felt rehearsed, and disappointment washed over me. I suggested alternative dates, but each one presented another conflict. Eventually, we settled on a weekend 3 months away, but her enthusiasm seemed forced. That evening, I sat alone on our balcony, watching the city lights flicker below. A growing uneasiness settled in my chest. I still loved Amanda deeply, but I could no longer ignore the distance between us. Nevertheless, I held on to hope that we could find our way back to each other. I had invested too much of my heart to give up without trying. One rainy Tuesday evening, I was reviewing our joint credit card statement when several charges caught my attention. There were multiple purchases from high-end jewelry stores and a boutique hotel downtown on days Amanda had claimed to be meeting with fabric suppliers. The amounts were substantial, totaling over $5,000 in just 1 week. My hands grew cold as I scrolled through the transactions. A particularly large charge for a weekend at a luxury resort stood out, dated during a time Amanda had told me she was visiting her parents in Oregon. With growing unease, I checked her Instagram account and found no posts from that weekend, unusual for someone who documented nearly everything. That night, I gently asked Amanda about the credit card charges, trying to keep my tone curious rather than accusatory. Her reaction was immediate and calculated. Her eyes widened in practiced innocence as she placed her hand on mine. "Oh, Chase," she said sweetly. "I was planning to surprise you. Those jewelry purchases were for pieces I'm incorporating into my new menswear accessories line, and the hotel I was meeting with potential investors and needed a professional setting. I can't believe you would question me like this. Don't you trust me?" Her explanation sounded plausible, yet something in her eyes didn't match her words. She quickly changed the subject, asking about my day and bringing me a glass of the expensive whiskey she knew I loved. Later that night, she initiated intimacy for the first time in weeks, leaving me conflicted and confused. The next morning, while Amanda was showering, I noticed a shopping bag tucked in the back of her closet. Inside was an expensive leather wallet with the initials TJ engraved on it. My heart sank. My initials are C.M. for Chase Mitchell. I carefully replaced the wallet and closed the closet, a sickening realization dawning on me. Amanda wasn't just spending my money on herself. She was using it to buy gifts for someone else. The following weeks became a quiet investigation. I discovered receipts for meals at restaurants we had never visited together, a membership to an exclusive gym I didn't belong to, and even flight tickets for weekend dates when Amanda had claimed to be working. Each discovery felt like another crack in the foundation of what I had believed was a loving relationship. As painful as these revelations were, I found myself torn between confronting her and holding on to the relationship I had invested so much in. Part of me still hoped there was an explanation, that I was misinterpreting the evidence. The thought of losing Amanda was devastating, but the possibility that our entire relationship was built on deception was even worse. While wrestling with these thoughts, I confided in my sister Lauren, who had always been my voice of reason. After listening carefully, she asked me a simple but profound question. If a friend told you this same story about their relationship, what advice would you give them? The answer was obvious, but taking my own advice proved far more difficult than I expected. The weekend before the fateful text, Amanda announced she was visiting her sister in Seattle for a girls' weekend. I nodded and helped her pack, noticing she was taking far more formal attire than a casual sister visit would warrant. Still, I said nothing, choosing to believe her even as doubt gnawed at me. That Saturday night, while catching up on work, I received a notification from a mutual friend who had tagged Amanda in a photo. My finger hovered over the notification for several seconds before I tapped it. The image loaded, showing Amanda at an upscale restaurant in town, not Seattle, with her arm around a tall, well-dressed man I had never seen before. Her smile was radiant in a way I hadn't witnessed in months. My body went numb as I stared at the photo. The caption read, "Great, running into these two lovebirds tonight." The photo was quickly deleted, but the damage was done. I had the confirmation I had been both seeking and dreading. Instead of calling or texting Amanda immediately, I decided to wait until she returned. I needed time to process my thoughts and determine the best approach. That night I barely slept, replaying every moment of our relationship and wondering where things had gone wrong, or if anything had ever been right between us. The next morning I called Jackson, needing the perspective of someone who had known me before Amanda. We met at a quiet coffee shop where I showed him screenshots I had taken of the photo and the credit card statements. "Chase," he said after reviewing everything, "I hate to say this, but it looks like she's been using you." The person in the photo is Thomas Jenkins. He works in finance, makes decent money, but nowhere near what you do. Word around town is Hess been seeing someone who funds his lifestyle. My stomach dropped. I had heard rumors about this Thomas person through mutual connections, but I had never imagined he was connected to Amanda. Jackson continued, carefully choosing his words. "I didn't want to tell you this before I was sure, but I saw them together about a month ago at that new rooftop bar. When she spotted me, she pretended they were having a business meeting, but the way they were touching each other told a different story." As Jackson spoke, clarity washed over me. I had been so blinded by what I thought was love that I had missed all the obvious signs. Amanda hadn't been building her design career. She had been using my financial support to create a lifestyle that attracted and maintained relationships with other men, perhaps multiple others. That evening I returned home and began documenting everything from suspicious charges to inconsistent stories. I photographed the gifts meant for other men and compiled a timeline of her absences that contradicted her claims. I wasn't sure what I would do with this information, but gathering it gave me a sense of control in a situation where I had been powerless for too long. I decided I would confront Amanda when she returned the next day, setting clear boundaries and possibly ending the relationship, depending on her response. I prepared myself for denial, gaslighting, or even tearful confessions. What I wasn't prepared for was what actually happened. Monday morning arrived, and I headed to the office for an important client meeting. Amanda was scheduled to return that afternoon, and I had planned to have a serious conversation with her that evening. I tried to focus on my presentation, but my mind kept drifting to the confrontation ahead. Midway through my presentation on a new security software implementation, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it initially, but when it buzzed several more times in quick succession, I worried it might be an emergency. Excusing myself briefly, I checked my messages and froze. The text from Amanda read, "I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you. I'm not coming home. I'll send someone for my things this weekend. Please don't contact me again." I stared at the screen, my mind struggling to process the cold finality of her words. After all the sacrifices I had made after funding her lifestyle and supporting her dreams, she was discarding me via text message, without even the courtesy of a face-to-face conversation. My colleague James noticed my expression and asked if everything was okay. Somehow, I managed to slide the phone back into my pocket and return to the presentation. My voice remained steady, even as my insides churned with a mixture of shock, grief, and slowly building anger. As I continued speaking about data protection protocols, a strange clarity began to emerge through the emotional chaos. Amanda had made her choice, but she had forgotten something critical. She was still financially dependent on me. Her lifestyle, the one she had used to attract this new partner, existed only because of my generosity. In that moment of crystal clear awareness, I made my decision. During a brief break in the meeting, I typed 2 words in response: "As you wish." Then I silenced my phone and finished the presentation with a newfound focus, knowing exactly what I needed to do next. As soon as the meeting ended, I excused myself from the office, explaining to my boss that I had a personal emergency. On the drive home, a plan formed in my mind. Amanda had chosen to end things in the most disrespectful way possible. Now she would learn that actions have consequences. Upon reaching my apartment, I immediately sat at my computer and made a list of every financial account Amanda had access to. 2 credit cards, a joint checking account I had set up for household expenses, online shopping accounts with saved payment information, and various subscription services. I began with the credit cards, calling each company to report the authorized user cards as lost and requesting immediate cancellation. Next, I logged into our joint checking account and transferred all but $100 to my personal account, then contacted the bank to initiate the process of removing her name. With methodical precision, I changed passwords on all online shopping accounts and removed her saved payment methods. I canceled the subscriptions to streaming services, meal delivery programs, and the monthly beauty box she loved. Each action was taken without emotion, simply the necessary steps to protect myself financially. As I worked, my phone began lighting up with notifications. Amanda had discovered that her cards were being declined. Her first message read, "What is going on with the cards? I'm trying to check into my hotel." I continued my financial disentanglement without responding. More messages followed, their tone shifting from confused to angry to panicked as she realized what was happening. By evening, her texts had become desperate pleas. "Chase, please. I need to talk to you. This is a misunderstanding." I finished securing my finances and then turned to practical matters. I called my building manager and explained that my girlfriend had moved out and should no longer have access to the building. Then I contacted a locksmith to change my door locks first thing in the morning. That night, I ordered takeout and ate alone at my kitchen counter, surrounded by the now obvious evidence of Amanda's deception. Designer shopping bags still sat in the corner. Her half-empty coffee cup from Friday morning remained on the table. These ordinary objects now seemed like artifacts from a relationship that had been an illusion all along. My phone continued to buzz with increasingly frantic messages from Amanda. "You can't do this to me. I have expenses, commitments." "What am I supposed to tell Thomas about the weekend trip?" I promised him. This last message confirmed everything. She had been planning a trip with her new boyfriend funded by my money. The audacity was almost impressive. As I prepared for bed that night, a strange sense of calm settled over me. The relationship I had valued so deeply was over, but in its end I had found the strength to reclaim my self-respect. The apartment felt emptier without her presence, yet somehow I felt more whole than I had in months. The next day brought a barrage of calls and messages, not just from Amanda, but also from mutual friends she had apparently contacted. According to her version of events, I had cruelly cut her off without warning or reason. She conveniently omitted the breakup text she had sent me. I sent a brief message to our closest mutual friends, simply stating, "Amanda ended our relationship via text yesterday. I've respected her decision by separating our finances. I would appreciate your understanding during this difficult time." Most friends responded with sympathy and support, many admitting they had suspected Amanda was not being faithful. Those who had been closer to her than me simply stopped communicating, taking her side without hearing mine. Their loss of friendship was another unexpected pain in an already difficult situation. Throughout the day, Amanda's messages continued to evolve. Her initial anger gave way to manipulative tactics I now recognized all too well. I made a terrible mistake. I was confused and scared of how much I love you. Remember how good we were together. No one will ever understand you like I do. Each message reinforced that I had made the right decision. The Amanda I had fallen in love with, if she had ever truly existed, was not the person sending these desperate texts. By evening, her approach changed again. She threatened to tell people I had abused her to ruin my reputation if I didn't restore her financial support. I saved these messages without responding, understanding they might be important evidence if her threats escalated. That night, my sister Lauren came over with dinner and a supportive ear. As we talked through everything that had happened, she helped me see patterns in my relationship with Amanda that I had been blind to before. "You gave, and she took and took," Lauren observed. "That's not love, Chase. That's exploitation." Her words stung but rang true. I had mistaken my own generosity for love, and Amanda's acceptance of that generosity as affection. The realization was painful but necessary for my healing. Before leaving, Lauren helped me gather Amanda's remaining belongings into boxes which we placed in my guest room closet. The act of physically removing her presence from my daily living space felt both devastating and liberating. As I closed the closet door on that chapter of my life, I found myself wondering what Amanda would do when she realized her manipulation tactics were no longer working. I didn't have to wonder long. Exactly 48 hours after Amanda's breakup text, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Expecting another of her tactics, perhaps calling from a friend's phone, I almost declined the call. At the last moment, curiosity won out, and I answered. "This is Chase Mitchell," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Harold Winters, with Winters & Associates Law Firm. I represent Amanda Taylor, who informs me that you have unlawfully restricted her access to shared financial resources and property." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Amanda had actually hired an attorney to try to intimidate me into resuming my financial support. "Mr. Winters," I replied calmly, "I appreciate your call, but I think your client may have misrepresented our situation." The lawyer continued, his voice dripping with practiced intimidation. "Miss Taylor indicates that you have been in a domestic partnership for over 2 years, during which time shared finances were established with implicit agreements regarding support. Your abrupt termination of these arrangements without notice constitutes abandonment and possible financial abuse." I took a deep breath, suddenly grateful for my meticulous nature. "I have documentation you might find relevant, Mr. Winters. First, Miss Taylor terminated our relationship via text message 2 days ago, stating, and I quote, 'I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you.' There was a pause on the other end of the line. Additionally, I continued, all accounts were solely in my name with Miss Taylor as an authorized user, not a joint owner. I have records of her using my finances to purchase gifts for her new partner, as well as funding trips they took together while she was still living in my apartment." Another longer pause followed. When the lawyer spoke again, his tone had shifted noticeably. "Mr. Mitchell, these are serious allegations that would certainly affect the nature of any potential claims. Would you be willing to share this documentation?" "Certainly," I replied. "I'd also be happy to share text messages from Miss Taylor threatening to falsely accuse me of abuse if I didn't continue supporting her financially." I heard papers shuffling on the other end of the line, followed by a cleared throat. "I see. Mr. Mitchell, I think it would be best if I consult further with my client before we proceed. There seems to be information she omitted from our discussions. I resisted the urge to point out how spectacularly unprofessional it was to make legal threats without verifying his client's claims. Instead, I simply said, "I think that's wise. Please let me know if you need anything else." As I ended the call, a weight lifted from my shoulders. Amanda's final attempt at manipulation had failed. I was truly free. The next morning, I consulted with my own attorney, Sofia Rodriguez, a sharp-minded family law specialist recommended by a colleague. After reviewing my documentation and the situation, she assured me that I had acted within my legal rights. "Mr. Mitchell," she said confidently, "there was no common law marriage in our state, no joint ownership of accounts, and no written agreements regarding support. Miss Taylor has no legal claim to continued financial support, especially given the circumstances of your separation." Sophia helped me draft a formal cease and desist letter to Amanda, addressing her threats and making it clear that any further harassment would result in legal action. We also prepared responses to any potential claims her attorney might pursue, though Sophia doubted he would continue representing her after learning the full story. A week later, my suspicions were confirmed when I received a brief, formal letter from Harold Winters. It stated simply that his firm would no longer be representing Miss Taylor in any matters related to me. The letter included an apology for any undue stress caused by their initial contact. Through mutual connections, I later learned that Amanda and Thomas' relationship had crumbled shortly after she lost access to my financial support. Apparently, Thomas had been attracted to the lifestyle Amanda could provide, not to Amanda herself. When the luxury vacations and expensive gifts stopped, so did his interest. Amanda made one final attempt to reconnect, showing up at my office unannounced. Security called up and I agreed to speak with her briefly in the lobby. Her appearance shocked me. Gone were the designer clothes, and perfect makeup replaced by a simple outfit and a tired expression. "Chase, I made a horrible mistake," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "I never appreciated what we had until it was gone. Please give me another chance. I've changed." Looking at her, I felt an unexpected emotion, compassion. Not love or desire to reconcile, but simple human compassion for someone facing the consequences of their actions. "Amanda," I said gently, but firmly, what we had wasn't real. "You were using me, and I was allowing myself to be used because I thought it was love. We both deserve better than that." She argued, pleaded, and even tried to touch my arm seductively, but I remained resolute. Finally, accepting that her efforts were futile, she asked if she could at least collect her remaining belongings from the apartment. I arranged for her to pick up her boxes that weekend while I was out of town visiting my parents. When I returned her, things were gone, along with a few small items that hadn't belonged to her. I decided to let it go, considering it a small price for complete freedom from a toxic relationship. The following months were a time of reflection and rebuilding. I focused on my work, pouring energy into a new project that had been on the back burner during my relationship with Amanda. My company thrived, and I received a substantial promotion that further secured my financial future. Sleep didn't come easily at first. I would lie awake, replaying moments from the relationship, questioning how I had missed so many red flags. My therapist, Dr. Marshall, helped me understand that manipulative people target kind-hearted individuals precisely because of their willingness to see the best in others. "It's not a weakness to be trusting, Chase," he told me during one session. "It's a strength. The key is learning to balance trust with healthy boundaries." Those words became my mantra as I worked through the emotional aftermath of Amanda's betrayal. I started setting clearer boundaries in all my relationships, professional and personal. To my surprise, most people respected these boundaries, and those who didn't quickly revealed themselves as individuals I was better off without. I reconnected with hobbies and interests that had fallen by the wayside during my relationship. I joined a local hiking club, rediscovered my love for playing guitar, and even took cooking classes that had always interested me. Each new activity helped rebuild my identity outside of the relationship that had consumed so much of my life. Old friendships were rekindled, particularly with people Amanda had subtly discouraged me from seeing. Jackson and I resumed our weekly basketball games, and I started having regular dinners with Lauren and her husband. The support network I had neglected proved stronger than I deserved, welcoming me back without judgment. Gradually, the apartment that had felt so empty began to feel like home again. I rearranged the furniture, painted the walls, a color I had always preferred, and hung artwork that reflected my own tastes. Every change, no matter how small, was an act of reclaiming my space and my life. 6 months after Amanda's departure, I encountered her unexpectedly at a coffee shop downtown. She was with Thomas, the man from the photo, both looking considerably less polished than in their social media appearances. They were arguing quietly, but intensely in the corner. When Amanda spotted me, she quickly plastered on a smile and approached. "Chase, how are you? You look great." Her attempt at casual friendliness after everything that had happened was almost comical. I noticed Thomas watching us with obvious discomfort, likely aware of who I was and the role he had played in our breakup. "I'm doing well, Amanda," I replied simply, neither cold nor warm. "And you?" She launched into an obviously embellished account of her thriving design business and wonderful relationship. As she spoke, I realized something profound. I felt nothing for her anymore. No anger, no resentment, not even disappointment. She had become just another person with her own struggles and flaws. That realization was the final piece of my healing. I excused myself politely, wished them both well, and continued with my day. Walking out of that coffee shop, I felt lighter than I had in years, free from the emotional burden I had been carrying. In the year since then, I've established new patterns for relationships. I date occasionally but take things slowly, watching carefully for signs of authentic connection versus transactional interest. I'm open about my past experience without dwelling on it, using it as a learning opportunity rather than a source of bitterness. My financial boundaries are now non-negotiable. While I'm still generous with people I care about, I no longer confuse supporting someone with loving them. True partnerships involve mutual respect and contribution, even if the financial resources aren't equal. Looking back, I can honestly say that as painful as that experience was, I am grateful for the growth it forced upon me. I learned to value myself enough to walk away from people who only value what I can provide for them. I discovered strength I didn't know I possessed, and wisdom I might otherwise never have gained. The most valuable lesson I learned from my experience with Amanda is that authentic relationships cannot be purchased. Real love isn't sustained by material provision, but by mutual respect, honesty, and genuine care for another person's well-being. For too long, I believed that generosity would automatically be met with gratitude and loyalty. I learned the hard way that some people view generosity merely as an opportunity for exploitation. This doesn't mean we should stop being generous, but rather that we should be mindful of the foundation upon which our relationships are built. I no longer ignore red flags or dismiss my intuition when something feels wrong. I've learned to trust myself to believe what people show me about themselves, rather than what I wish to see. This awareness has led to healthier connections in every area of my life. Perhaps most importantly, I've learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. When Amanda sent that cruel text, I could have begged her to reconsider or continued supporting her financially in hopes of winning her back. Instead, I chose self-respect, and that made all the difference. Today, my life is richer and more authentic than it was during those years with Amanda. I am building connections based on shared values rather than material exchange, and the resulting relationships bring genuine joy rather than constant anxiety. To anyone facing a similar situation, remember this: you deserve to be valued for who you are, not what you provide. Setting boundaries isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about creating space for the kind of love that truly enriches your life. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between maintaining a relationship and maintaining your self-respect? Leave a comment below with your experience. And if this story helped you in any way, please subscribe to support more content like this. Remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.